Hello, Miss Angela.
Carla!
How are you?
Oh my
I'm
goodness, I'm so
very
happy to
happy to
see
see you
you.
too. And in December, near Christmas time, on top of all of that.
I know, I know. First of all, I apologize for the last time we were supposed to get together. I didn't know
That's
about
okay,
it.
girl. You know stuff happens, and you know I understand.
Oh, I was mortified. I was like, no, not Carla. No, not Miss Corporate. You didn't get the date wrong with Carla.
That's all right. We're here now.
So I'm so glad you gave us another
You're most
chance.
welcome.
Thank
Thanks for
you.
having me. I'm
Yes, how
good. You
are
know,
you,
Christmas
my
time is
friend?
my favorite time of year, which is why I recorded two Christmas CDs, as you know. But I'm just happy that we've gotten through
Yeah.
22 in fine form, and I'm very excited about 23.
Yeah, I am too. I'm excited about 23 too. You know what? I get so much from your reels.
Of
For I don't know
course.
if you're on TikTok. Are you on TikTok too? Okay. So I mainly watch your reels, but I get so much from them. And I always end up sharing them with my friends who are in corporate America. I'll say, oh, you have to see what Carla is saying now. This is so good. But I realize they really speak
That's
to me as an
exactly
artist
right.
too.
I've designed the pearls, Angela, to be industry agnostic, gender agnostic, and seniority agnostic. You know, I wish I had had them when I started out in my career. I would have had a whole different trajectory. But even in my seasoned career, I use these pearls aggressively, and they work.
Hmm. Yes, your seasoned career. I love that. I'm in mine too. I love that. Now, you know, that is such a, people don't realize what a motivation that is. I mean, it is traumatic when things, when you don't have the support you need and all of that. When I was starting out as an artist, I didn't have a whole lot of people going, move to
Right.
New York, do this, do this. And so I had to find my own way. And that's sort of why I do things like Artist Talk, because I want to share what I know. And that seems
You're
like what you're
absolutely right,
doing as
Angela. I
well.
mean, I didn't have a playbook either. I mean, you and I are from the same city. And, you know, the environment that we grew up in, and we grew
Mhm.
up around the same time, the environment that we grew up in, as say to people, if you were black and smart in the South, growing up in the, you know, late 60s, 70s, and early 80s, people pushed you into one of three lanes: be a teacher, be a doctor or a nurse, you know, or be a lawyer. You know, those were the sort of three lanes that you got pushed into. Nobody said, go be an investment banker, go be an award winning actress, you know, because, and again, you know, our parents, like most parents, were trying to protect us. They wanted their kids to grow up to be kind, to be able to take care of themselves, you know, and to be great people in the world, but not thinking about these other avenues. So I realized that when I got here, I had to sort of figure a lot of these things out. And the way that I acquired every one of these pearls was falling in the hole, you know, crawling out of the hole, thinking about what should have happened, tried it again, and then coming up on the thing that actually worked and knew that it worked. And you know how the thing goes. If life comes to teach you a lesson and you don't pass the test, you will repeat the class. So it's coming again, right? To see if you learned. So
Yeah.
that's why I wrote the first book,
Hmm.
Expect to Win, to give people what I call the basic pearls. Here's how you maximize your success in the seat that you're sitting in or the seat that you aspire to sit in. So they wouldn't have to figure it out, or they wouldn't have to feel like they were the only one that this was happening to. And then the other books came out of motivations for things that I realized that people didn't know, but also needed, like performance currency and relationship currency. And this last book, Lead to Win, oh my goodness, that was born and inspired because I realized we were in a different context now. We were in a context where my way or the highway type leadership, which is the context that you and I built our careers in, my way or the highway, that
Yeah.
context was dead now. It was a whole new context where millennials and Zers were demanding transparency, inclusivity, feedback. And you and I didn't get a lot of feedback. We were told, keep your head down, work hard. If you don't get
Yeah.
fired, that's how you know you're doing okay.
Yeah. That's right. It's a different, it is a completely different time. How have you managed to sort of, I don't
Hmm.
know, migrate from the keep your head
Right.
down, just do your job, to the transparency and not be judgmental of it. Because I know at first you kind of want to say, look, now I made it
Yeah.
and I didn't have to do
Yeah.
all this, so just do your job. How did you
Yeah,
do
I
it,
got to tell you,
not
I
be
started
judgmental?
realizing that millennials and Zers were becoming the dominant population in the workforce. That was number one. Number two, they were an integral part of my teams at work. And I knew the My Way of the Highway was not going to get outsized productivity and was not going to get the extra. So I realized that as a leader, I wanted the extras, which means I had to figure out how to manage, how to motivate, how to inspire, which is what this workforce demanded. So the way I got there is I said, listen, if you still want to be successful, and you cannot be successful on your own, you're going to need these great teams of, energetic, bright, very smart people, then you better figure out how to manage and inspire them. So that alone was my motivation. If nothing else, I say to leaders like you and me, selfishly think about what you need. And if you need to be successful and you want to be successful, then you better figure out how to get the very best out of the teams that you're working with now.
I love that. And you know what I discovered when I did get to the point where I could migrate and understand how they were seeing the world,
Absolutely.
I learned a lot from them.
Absolutely. Just like people
Mhm.
who were managing and leading us learned from us, but they never wanted to admit it. I learned from
Right.
millennials and Zers all the time, and I say it. I speak on it. I say, "Wow, I learned something today," or "Show me how to do X, Y, and Z." Even to get on this call, I consulted my chief. Yes, girl, I had not done an Instagram live before, and I called my chief digital strategist, who's about 24-ish, 5-ish, and I said, "Listen, let's do a practice." She asked me, "Would you like to practice or do you have this?" I'm like, "No, I do not have this. Let's practice."
Yes, I can understand that. I always tell Kai, my sister, if they're over 40, let's do a practice.
Absolutely. That is true, darling.
But know, the strategies that you're talking about in terms of, you do it for yourself too, to just be selfish if you want to get things done and accept people where they are. Gen Zers and millennials are different. That also can
Absolutely.
apply to parenting.
Absolutely. I mean, you and I, became parents at a more seasoned state. And, I got to tell you, as smart as I think I am as an accomplished investment banker, I didn't know anything about being a mother. And I was trying to pull everything I could think of from the things that I thought my mother did correctly. But there were little things about, the tricks and tabs to burping, to quieting babies down. And I'm telling you, I was consulting any and everybody, whether they were an 18-year-old mother, a 40-year-old mother. Show me.
Show me. Me too. I still am. My mom went to
Mine
be
did
with the
too.
Lord a few years
Yeah.
ago, but she was,
Yes.
oh, I didn't know. We have
Yes.
so much in common. But she was with me, lived here with me for like 11 years. And so she was able to be there at the
Yes.
beginning of the
Excellent.
baby. Yeah, she was very, very, very helpful, but she had dementia. And so she would always think the baby was me. So she would say, oh, now come here, little
Right,
girl. And
right,
he's a boy,
right.
But it was still very sweet to see them together.
They are
How
great.
are your
They are great.
girls?
They are 2.5 now and 7. And I will tell you that they have opened up a whole new chapter of Carla Harris. And I also have to tell you that I learned a lot about business from the babies. Yes, ma'am. Let me give
Really?
you an
Give me an
example.
example.
So, I took a few months of maternity leave a few months after we got Dakota. And I
Mhm.
realized as I was trying to get her to stop crying, or I was trying to settle her down, that we were not speaking the same language, supposedly. So supposedly she couldn't understand me, and she's crying. I couldn't understand her. But we had a mutual objective. The baby wanted to stop crying. I wanted the baby to stop crying. So my whole approach to her was, how can I help you? to yield, to just lay back and say, how can I help you? And I thought, what would happen if I went back to work and I took this attitude of, how can I help you? Instead of going into the ring to fight all the time. And as you can imagine, working in a male-dominated field like Wall Street, your whole approach is, as a woman, you got to be strong enough, you got to be tough enough, you got to be able to fight your way through it, et cetera, et cetera. So for years, I had been in the pot fighting, right? But now, all of a sudden, I said,
Yeah.
let me try this yielding. So when I went back to work, one of my first meetings was with one of the toughest people, somebody I would always go into the office with, ready for combat, ready to win my point. Instead, I walked in and said, so-and-so, let's call him Bob. I said, Bob, how can I help you? I know we're here to talk about A, B, C, and D, but what do you need? What can I give to you? Bob sort of looked, and he said, oh, well, he was ready to kind of engage in a fight. And I said, no, what do you need? You got it. No problem. I can do that. And I turned to walk out, and he said, wait a minute. I said, what? He said, what can I do for you? How can I help you? And from that day
Yeah.
to this one, I will tell you that I walk in posture of yielding. The tougher I think the meeting is going to be, the tougher the negotiation is going to be, I walk in with a, how can I help you posture, and come out winning every time.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you for that. Did you guys hear that? I mean, that's a wonderful strategy. Even that, like I said, even with the kids, but that is,
Mm-hmm.
thank you for that. Okay. So as a woman, a Black woman, you are in this industry where you have to be strong and you have to, be assertive in a certain way strategically, as you just talked about. But you are a Southern woman. I know where you're from. So how did you get that, that grit that you
I
need to
am
be
a
successful on
Southern
Wall
woman,
Street?
you are right, that is negatively motivated. So when you tell me I can't do something, I'm all over it like a bad smell. And so I think that negative motivation is the thing that helped push me through. So the more I encountered challenges, or the more I encountered people that were trying to make it difficult, the more determined I became to push right through that. And in the process, Angela, I'll tell you another great lesson that I learned. Everything is not worth your energy. There are certain things that are said that are not worth your breath to answer to. So some things I just tend to do like that. Because if you fight every battle, if you engage every single time, you dissipate your energy. So when the real thing where you need to really apply some energy comes, you're tired. And there are two things that hold women back: fear and fatigue. Women more so than men, but it also applies to men, but definitely fear and fatigue. And fear is a factor earlier in your career, and fatigue is a factor later in your career. I see so many women right at the top. All they got to do is push a fingernail right through, and they can get through that proverbial glass ceiling. But their perception is that to push through is going to take the same amount of energy that they've expended for the last 20 years. And they're like, I'm tired. I just don't have it. They can have that title. They can have that role. I'm too tired. When in fact, it takes a small poke and you're right through the ceiling. So if you're feeling tired, get some rest, right? Take 2 or 3 days, because fatigue colors your lens and it colors your perspective. But when you've had a couple of days to woosah, then you see it clearly. And now that's all the energy that you need to push through. And early in your career, it's fear. Oh, what if I fail? Or in some cases, what if I succeed? Some people, believe it or not, have a fear of success, because then they say, then what? What will happen after then? And so once you can get a hold to those two things, then you really know how to master it, and you know how to direct your energy in a way that's going to be most productive for you.
Fear and fatigue. And fatigue is so real because I tell you, I have in my mind and in my heart to do many things that I don't have the,
Yeah,
the energy to do. And, you know, I have to push, I have to push, I have to push because I'm motivated, you know, as well. But I have heard that Tyler Perry, I remember asking him, you know, why do you have to do all that? Like, how, where do you find the energy? How do you're doing a movie and a TV show and a book and an opening studio, and then do you have to do? And he said, as long as I have the energy,
that's
I'm
right.
doing it. And he said, because one day
That's
I
right.
might not have the energy. And so
Yep.
at least I would have
Yep,
capitalized.
absolutely. I hope I get to meet him one day because we are definitely, you know, somebody who looks at things. We're two people who look at things exactly the same way.
Mm-hmm. You will definitely meet him one day. I don't doubt that at all. Such a wonderful man and so motivating, just like you are. But he has those things. He's like, as long as I have the energy to do it,
Yep.
I'm
I say
gonna
to
go
people all the
full
time,
force.
Angela, as long as he gives me strength to run, I'm gonna run hard.
I'm gonna run hard. Now that's a great segue into your gospel music. It, First of all, you know, when you've accomplished as much as you've accomplished, I remember Michael McElroy. Michael is the founder of the Broadway Inspirational Voices and was the director for over 25 years. Michael McElroy mentioned you to me, and he said, "Do you know Carla Harris?" And I was like, "Carla Harris from Jacksonville?" And he said, "Yeah." He said,
Yep.
"We're gonna sing backup for her, the choir." And I said, "For what?" She's a Wall Street. And he said, "No, she's a singer
Yep.
and she has a gospel album."
Yes.
What? I mean, when did you just wake up after you were so successful and say, "I need something else to do"?
No, not at all. I'll tell you, I have been singing since I was 9 years old at St. Pius when we were down there in Jacksonville, Florida. And I sang all through college. I had a band at Harvard Business School. We were sort of the resident band. So every time there was a social event at Harvard Business School, we were the band that was hired to do that. And I always wanted to record a CD. And I'm going to tell you what finally pushed me. Every year, you know, on that list of to-dos or those New Year's resolutions, I would write, record a CD, record a CD. But then 1999, that was the year that I was up for the big promotion to managing director. And I said to myself, Carla Harris, if you don't get promoted to managing director this year, and if you don't record your CD, you're going to be really angry at yourself. Now, you can't control what's going to happen in that promotion room, but you can control whether or not you record this CD. And that's when I recorded Carla's First Christmas, which ended up, interestingly enough, in the Sunday business section of the New York Times. Now, if you're a banker, you live and breathe to get in the business section of the New York Times on a Sunday or in the Wall Street Journal. It wasn't until I recorded that album that I ended up in the Sunday Times. It was Manager Sings of a Manger, because it was a Christmas album. And then fast forward 2006, when I released, after I had released Joy is Waiting, which is where Michael and members of the Broadway Inspirational Voices sang on that. I sang at Carnegie Hall for the first time in 2005. February of 2006, there was half page of the Wall Street Journal, you know, banker's credo, good business, good singing, good works. So here I am doing something for him. That's how Carla the banker ended up in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal. How about that? Right? Serving him, because all of the proceeds from the album sales went to Bishop Kenny High School down in Jacksonville, Florida, and St. Charles Borromeo up in Harlem.
There's so many. I want to say the moral of the story, but there's so many because you know, the thing is, I know so many doctors, I know so many lawyers. Donna Robinson, I hope you're listening. I know so many people who are in corporate and other careers who have
Mm-hmm.
artistic dreams and who feel like they have to choose. Well, no, but I chose to be a lawyer. And you are showing the world that really,
That's
if
right.
you are an artist, you're an
That's
artist,
exactly right.
period.
That's exactly, and you can pursue that. And in fact, Carla the banker helped Carla the singer because Carla the singer had no idea how to record a CD, how to get it distributed. Because remember, this was 1999. We were still going to Sam Goody's and Virgin Records and Colony to buy
Colony.
our music. So distribution was a big deal, right? So I remember when it was time to record the album, I talked to another banker at Morgan Stanley, who was a musician, who was very connected in the musical world. And I said, Peter, I really want to do a recording, and I'm not sure how to get started. He said, let me introduce you to Jeff. Jeff was another guy who was on the sales and trading floor, senior guy. He said, oh, he has a recording studio in his house. Maybe he'll record you. I went out to lunch with Jeff. Jeff says, oh, let me introduce you to Moran Melrose, who at that time was the musical director for the Scarlet Pimpernel, which was an award-winning show on Broadway at the time. I literally went over in my lunch hour and sang for Ron, and he said, okay, I'll record you. I didn't know anything about where to go to a recording studio. I didn't know anything about a musical engineer. Fast forward, I got a CD in my hand. Now I'm saying, how do I get it sold? Here's the banker again. I'm sitting in my office one day. Joe Perella, who was a senior managing director at the time, walked into my office. He said, out of the blue, Angela, Carla Harris, what can I do for you today? And I said, Joe, you know Dick Parsons. And at that time, Dick Parsons was the CEO of Warner Music. And I said, I got a CD. I need to figure out how to get it in the record stores. He said, so you want to meet Dick? I'm like, yeah, I want to meet Dick. Literally, we walk over there one afternoon. I didn't even know, he had not even told, Dick why we were coming. Nothing but the Holy Spirit told me to put 2 CDs in a black folder. That was my press package. Ha ha. Nothing else was in the package but the 2 CDs. I go over to Dick Parsons' office, Joe Perella and he said, okay, tell Dick what you want. And I said, well, Mr. Parsons, I'm a singer. Even though I'm an investment banker, I recorded, a CD, and I need to figure out how to get distribution. He said, what kind of music? I said, Christmas music. He said, I love Christmas music. I said, oh, thank you, Jesus, to myself. So he started talking to me about what to do. He said, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to introduce you to Andy Allen, who was the head of the independent distribution arm for Warner. And he said, so I'm going to tell you, this is how it's going to go. Either they'll call you back or I'll call you back. If I call you back, that's not a good thing. They didn't like it, right? But if he calls you back, then you're on your own. See if you can sell it. Andy Allen called me. I go down there and I get my best banker pitch on. Meanwhile, I had already signed up for Amazon. And remember, Amazon was just getting started. Well, my numbers at Amazon were really good. And so Andy said, well, I got to tell you, I don't think we can do it because it's going to be hard to sell. Nobody knows who you are as an artist. And I said, well, I'm on Amazon. So he leaned back. He checked his Amazon numbers. He was like, holy crap, I'll take several thousand. And so as an independent distributor, that's how it got into all the record stores. And they put it in Virgin Megastore, which, remember, was right across the street from Morgan Stanley in Times Square. And I would go over every day and say, you guys have Carla's First Christmas? You have, and the guy was like, who is that? Everybody's coming over asking for that. Because remember, all my friends at Morgan Stanley knew about it. And I was saying, go across there and buy it.
Yeah.
And so I walked in one day, there were 7 rows of Virgin Recommends Carla's First Christmas. So you see, the baker helped the singer.
Carla. Oh my God. And this is what I know. This is what I know. If it was just the singer without the banker, we would have been, because I know artists, I am one, we would have been like, oh Lord, I'm going to meet Ted. Oh, what if they say no? And the fear would have gotten in the way of all of that. I think you were able to be so at peace, one, because you know whose you are, but 2, because you were, you you didn't need it to eat at that moment.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But you know what, Angela? We all have a backup, right? And even though you're saying that this is
Yeah.
the thing that, I need in order to eat, you got to know that you know that you know that if he has told you that this is going to be the mechanism you will be able to eat, then you got to step out on that and go full force all the time, right? And if you get to the point where you say, okay, it's not happening right now, then think about all the other gifts that you have and say, okay, I need to leverage another one of my gifts in order to be able to do this at this point. So sometimes the timing doesn't line up, but you always have the resources that he's given you inside in order to advance, always.
Yes. Now, when you were having all these meetings and going, from one executive to the other, literally sitting in record executives' offices, were you
No,
intimidated at
not at
all?
that point, because again, remember, I'm using somebody else's currency at that point, right? I was using Joe's currency
Mm-hmm.
to get in to see Dick Parsons, and then Dick Parsons' currency to get in to speak to Andy Allen. All I needed to do was to make sure that I delivered excellence every single time I was using that currency. That's how you give somebody a return on the currency that they are spending on you.
Yes. Make sure you're excellent every time. Whew. You're preaching, you know that. If people are saying it in the comments, they're saying that you are preaching, and you are. You talk about performance currency and
Hmm.
relationship currency. Explain what
Absolutely.
those
Performance
things are.
currency is the currency that is generated by your delivering that which was asked of you. Every time that you perform on an assignment above somebody's expectations, you generate the performance currency. And performance currency works like the stock market does. Anytime a company says to the street that they're going to deliver 25 cents a share in that quarter, and that company delivers 40 cents a share, that stock goes up every single time, and so will yours. Performance currency is valuable for three reasons. Number one, early in your career, early on in any new environment, it gets you noticed. It will create a reputation for you. Number two, early on in your career, early on in any new environment, it gets you paid and promoted. And number three, it may also attract a sponsor. And a sponsor is the most important relationship that you will have in your career, because a sponsor is the person that carries your paper into the room, that room where your compensation is decided, that room where your promotions are decided, that room where new assignments are given out, that room where you are not present. They has to spend your behalf in order for you to get that thing. That's the sponsor. But over time, even though performance currency, as I like to joke, is worth about $1.50, over time, the longer you're in one area, it starts to experience diminishing marginal returns. It is now worth about $1 because now everybody knows you're good. Everybody expects that you will deliver. So you don't get that premium anymore. The currency that's now most important is the relationship currency. And relationship currency is the currency that is generated by the investments that you make in the people in your environment. None of us work in a silo. We're all working in highly interdependent environments. So at a minimum, you must have a relationship with every seat that touches your seat. And let me just close by saying this. Most people think it's the hard work, Angela, but it's not. When you get to a certain level, there are a lot of people that are assumed to be as hardworking as you are. There are a lot of people that are assumed to be as good as you are. What makes the difference is somebody in that room says, "Oh, no, 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 Angela's the one. She will do a terrific job." Or, "Oh, you know what? Ted, he's the right guy. Nobody's better than him. If he can't figure it out, it won't happen." When somebody in that room is saying that, that makes all the difference in your being chosen. But if nobody in that room knows you well enough to make those kind of comments on your behalf, then it goes to the next person, and it has absolutely nothing to do with your ability to do the job, but everything to do with whether or not somebody knows well enough to make those comments on your behalf.
So You
No.
cannot be an island. You cannot,
You
you
have
have to make
to. And
relationships
and
with
we can't
others.
underscore that enough, especially as people of color. Because if we walk into an environment that we think is not so friendly, or could be a little bit tough, or is filled with other people that have not done well by us, we retreat. We say, oh, I'm just going to keep my head down. I'm going to work really hard, and they'll see that I'm good and I'm loyal, and I'm not going to engage in those relationships. I'm not going to try to play those politics. But here's the problem. When people don't know you, it's much easier to do you wrong then. But if they know you, then it's going to be much harder for somebody to affirmatively try to step in your way or do wrong by you. You will need other people's relationships in order to maximize your success, whether you're in your industry, mine, or any other.
Absolutely. And I love what you said about everybody knows you're talented. Because uh, once
That's
you've
right.
been around a while and you have a body of work,
That's right.
everybody knows that you could do the work. So what else are you going to bring? Are you going to make the process? Uh, are you going to make the process livable,
That's right.
doable,
That
peaceful? Or are you
you
going to
got
bring
that right.
drama?
And especially in your business, you're right. You know that there are lots of talented actors and actresses that haven't gotten the nod because the perception in the marketplace is that they're difficult to work with. And that's what I talked about in my first
Yes.
book. Chapter 4 was perception is the co-pilot to reality. How people perceive you
Mm-hmm.
will directly impact how they deal with you.
Mm-hmm. Now, what
Uh-huh.
if their perception is wrong? How can you go about
Absolutely. So if you
changing
want to
it?
change the perception, you think about the three adjectives that you would like people to use to describe you when you are not in the room, because all of the important decisions will be made when you are not in the room. So whatever those three adjectives are, you need to have consistent behavior around those three adjectives if you want to train people to think about you in a certain way. So for example, let's say somebody says, she's not quantitative enough. So now, whenever you go into a meeting, you say things like, okay, well, what are the numbers trying to tell us? I'm a numbers jock when you get to it. It's all about what the numbers say. The numbers don't lie. Or, how can we think of this in a more quantitative way? Or there are three reasons why I'm thinking this, two hypotheses around this, and there are five outcomes that are possible. So you see what I'm doing, right? I'm speaking analytically, quantitatively.
Yes.
I'm talking about myself as a numbers geek, a quantitative person. And if you do that consistently, and let's say you've been in an environment for a period of time and you want to shift it, then you're going to have consistent behavior for at least 2 quarters before people will buy that you have actually changed. Because if you do it a little bit, they're like, what does so-and-so say to her? Or what is she trying to do? But if you're consistent 2 or 3 quarters, then when you're not in the room, people are going to start to describe you exactly the way you have trained them to think about you.
So we can
Absolutely.
train people to have,
But those adjectives have to be authentic to who you really are, right? So choose adjectives
yes,
that are authentic to you, but are also valued in your context.
yes. Now, I know you guys are, some of you who are theater or actors, you're wondering, okay, now how does this part apply? I have to tell you that there have been a many job that I had no idea how I ended up with that job. But it was because somebody spoke up for me and said, her, give it to her. And I all I had to do at that point was, as Carla said, was deliver, be excellent. So, if somebody speaks up for you and you get in the room and you're not excellent, then that's a different situation. So, oh my goodness, that is so on point. And it's so on
Absolutely.
point for any
Don't waste the
career.
currency.
Don't waste the currency, y'all. I am going to put that somewhere. Don't waste the currency. I love it. Um, I know when you started singing, and I know that, you were a young girl and all of that, and I know right before your big promotion. You said, I got to release this album, and I get all of that. But Carnegie Hall, you know, and the Apollo, I mean, you've taken it. This isn't just, I sing for my hobby. That's not what this is. This is a full-on second career. You are a full-on professional singer. How is
Well, I'll
that to
tell you, it's
manage?
not as difficult to manage, Angela, because in choosing to be the first seat as the investment banker, you know, that meant that I was making different decisions about the second seat, right? That meant that I could not be a touring artist, you know, like an Anita Baker or a Gladys Knight, because if the first seat meant I was an investment banker, then my first allegiance were to my clients. And when they said you needed to be here or you need to be on that call, then that had to prevail and everything else had to wait. So that meant as a singer, I had to be more confined to this area, if you will, and more confined to lots of time in between projects, right? Because as you pointed out, it wasn't the dominant seat. It wasn't the thing that was giving me the ability to eat, right? It was actually the thing that was fueling Carla the philanthropist, because we raised well over $1 million with all those Carnegie Hall concerts, and we gave all the money away, every dime, right? So it was really the philanthropist that was benefiting from Carla the singer. And then Carla the speaker, which was born about a decade or so ago, that woman was born from, you know, the banker and having to present in all those different boardrooms and having to present. So it's not that difficult to manage. When I have a big concert coming up, I start practicing 6 months ahead of time, like seriously, like, you know, full on every week voice lessons with Karen Parks, you know, full on, you know, going in the studio with my producer, Sean Lucas, full on, you know, doing all kinds of dress rehearsals. And people say, well, when do you get a chance to practice? Well, I live in New Jersey, as you know, and work in New York City. As a capital markets banker, I had to leave at 5:30 in the morning if I want to get there by 6. But if I have a little time and I got a concert coming in, I leave at 7, which means I don't get through the Lincoln Tunnel till 9. Well, I got 2 hours in the car. Guess what I'm doing? Practicing.
Singing. Yes, yes, yes. How important do you think philanthropy is
Huge,
for
huge.
anyone
None of
to
us
be
are out
involved?
here on our own. Somebody helped us. And if the good Lord has blessed you, and all of us are blessed with 3 things: time, talent, and treasure. And at different points in your life, you're going to have more of one than the other. And if he has blessed you with a lot of treasure, the way that you make sure that you make good on what he's blessed you with is to give it away, to help somebody else. And the way I think about it, Angela, is he gives, I get, I give, and it goes right back around again. And every time that circle goes around, it gets stronger and stronger and more powerful and more beneficial to you.
Hmm. Time, talent, and treasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Why
Because gospel
gospel?
music, in my mind, is like a universal language. We all go through situations, you know, where we can't see our way out or it's really hard. And gospel music speaks of hope. It speaks of joy. It speaks of assuredness. And no matter where you are in your life and where you are in the world, we all need some of that. So that's why I decided that that would be the place that I would really focus.
Did you ever feel, how in any work environment you keep your faith private? At
No.
least that's what folk would say. Did
No,
you
it's
ever
so
feel
funny. People say to
comfortable?
me all the time, Wall Street and faith, are they mutually exclusive? And the answer is absolutely not. And never did I hide it. And I believe one of the reasons it was so easy for it to coexist for me, Angela, was that I never hid it, but I never pushed it on anybody else, right? So I would say things like,
Hmm.
I could, in the early days when I was in mergers and acquisitions, those 100 hours a week that you used to hear about, it was fact, not fiction. So I would say, listen, I'll work on a Sunday, but 9 to 11, that's his. So I'll come in at 6 a.m. when I knew nobody else would come in. But I'll be here at 6 a.m., but at 9 o'clock, I got to go. I'll be back at 11 and I'll work all night long. Or I would say something like, well, you know, this deal's not going well. They got a mass at St. Patrick's right down the street because I was working at that time on 49th and 6th. I'm like, I can go right down there and that's where I'm going to spend my lunch hour on my knees and we'll see how this deal is going to work out. And then I would come back and the deal would work out quite well. And so I would joke, y'all know why that happened, right? Y'all know why that happened. And then it got to be a joke when their deal wasn't going well. They'd be like, yo, Carla, where you going to lunch? Can you, and then things started happening like, can I see you in the conference room? Um, you know, our baby was born prematurely and we're having some challenges. And, you know, I would appreciate if you could pray for us. Or, you know, my mother was diagnosed with X and I know you got a hotline up there. So I would appreciate. So it made for connections and conversations in places that, you know, weren't ordinarily happening. The faith did that.
Yeah, the faith did that. Well, I have to tell you, we are at the end. I have one more question to ask you, but we're talking about philanthropy and we're talking about your heart and we're talking about your faith. And I won't go into detail on a public forum. One day I'll write about it when I get your permission. But I would not be a mom today if it were not for you.
Well, all I can say is that was a blessing to be able to be a blessing.
You really were a blessing. And so perfectly timed. So thank you. I will always be grateful for you for sharing and getting us on
And let
that
me
path.
just say,
Thank you,
you're
my
most
friend.
welcome. But let me say, keep your foot on the gas, girl, because you are fierce and the things that you are doing are amazing. And I love watching you. So keep it going. And you and your lovely family have the most amazing Christmas ever.
We will. Oh, thank you, Carla. I just
All
love
right.
you. We got to
Let's
connect through
let's do it.
kids.
Let's do it.
We got to. So my last question to you is, you know, after doing all of this, I mean, I don't know a stone that has been left unturned. Um, you're a successful singer, you're a successful businesswoman, you're a successful author and public speaker. What
Girl,
possibly could
I
be
want to get
next
a
for you?
Grammy. That's what I want. I want to get a Grammy.
Okay.
And I'm going to keep working and singing till I get one.
Oh, girl, that's that's like I see that next year.
Okay, as they say, from your lips to God's
That is,
ears. Yes, yes.
yes. And you know how God works with you. Once you start, you know, you know, He's got you.
That's
I am so
what I'm
excited
working
about
on. I
that.
just dropped a new single about 3 weeks ago called Everybody's Somebody's Child. It was written by Sean Lucas and Gail Lou. And it was my way of saying to the world, you know, we've been spending a lot of time talking about how different we are and, you know, all the things that divide us. But at the end of the day, the one thing we do have in common is everybody's somebody's child.
Everybody is somebody's child.
Yeah,
Oh, you guys,
girl,
we
you
gotta
can get it. It's
find
up
that.
on
We
YouTube. It's
gotta
on Spotify. You can check it out.
I'm so excited for you, for the Grammy, for everything you're doing. Thank you for being a part of Artist Talk. Thank you for being a part of Art and Spirit. You really exemplify all that we represent.